In 1983, veteran explorer John Clarke, along with his pilot, Floyd Vaughn, were flying just above a glacier in the coast mountains of British Columbia when suddenly their engine stopped. There was nothing below them for miles around but ice, boulders, and tree-covered slopes. As Floyd later recalled about the engine failure, "It quit me in the worst place you could find if you looked all over British Columbia." We're going to recreate what happened next, so join us to see if our fate will be the same as those intrepid explorers. Let's go exploring with the Beav. Welcome to Digital Flight. We're here at Bella Coola in the beautiful and rugged coast mountains of British Columbia. Hi everyone, I'm Joe and I'll be your pilot for today's flight. Today we're going to recreate a portion of a flight by a much-loved coastal mountain explorer, John Clarke. His explorations are detailed in the book John Clarke, Explorer of the Coast Mountains, written by Lisa Bale. The 1983 flight that we'll be recreating today was with pilot Floyd Vaughn in preparation for John's exploration on foot of the ice field surrounding the headwaters of the Machmell River. They would drop burlap sacks full of supplies on the ice field, so John wouldn't have to start out carrying supplies for the entire journey. The sacks would be spaced out at about a week's walk apart. After dropping the supplies, they would land at a logging camp at the mouth of the river, where John would start his hike back up the river and commence his exploration of the headwaters of the river and the surrounding peaks. We'll pick up the flight after they've just dropped the third burlap sack of food for John's trek through the mountains. They had 2 sacks remaining. At that point, they were at about 10,000 feet above sea level and a few hundred feet over the ice field that surrounded the headwaters of the river. So let's get the Beav cranked up and head toward the headwaters of the Machmell River. Okay, so we're on our way to the headwaters of the river. That's where John and Floyd lost their engine, and that's where we'll be taking up the flight today. On that day, back in 1983, they were flying Floyd's Cessna 172. We're flying the Beav today for our flight. She's a de Havilland DHC-2 Beaver. A critical part of the flight that we'll replicate today is the part without the engine, so how well the plane glides is what's important in today's flight. The glide ratio of both the Cessna 172 and the Beav are about the same, 9-to-1, so we should experience the same challenges they faced back in 1983 when their engine suddenly quit. This coastal range of mountains is 1,000 miles long and nearly 200 miles wide, with numerous peaks exceeding 11,000 feet, and the tallest, Mount Waddington, reaching up over 13,000 feet. This range is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, and we will be going to the most remote part of the range today. So let's get on with it and get up to the headwaters of the Machmell River. We've just arrived over the ice field at the headwaters of the river. This glacier that we're over is what feeds the river below. This is where we joined John and Floyd in their flight from 1983. John has just thrown the third sack of supplies out of the plane for his upcoming trek over the glacier. 2 sacks remain, when without warning, the engine starts to sputter and dies. Despite repeated attempts, Floyd can't get the engine started. There's no place around for an emergency landing. The plane's equipped with wheels, so a safe landing on the ice and snow of the glacier below is impossible. The river valleys have steep, tree-covered slopes, and nowhere to land there, and the riverbed is narrow and strewn with boulders. Floyd turns the plane to follow the river valley below. He's pretty sure that's the Machmell. If it is, there's the landing strip at the old logging camp at the mouth of the river where they had planned to land and where John would start his trek back up the river. And to stretch our glide as far as possible, we use the best glide speed of about 90 miles per hour. John asked Floyd if he should throw the remaining 2 sacks of food and supplies out to lighten the plane. Floyd says no, figuring they might need those supplies if they don't make it to civilization. So we're at our best glide speed, heading in what we hope is the right direction. Will we make the landing strip at the logging camp at the mouth of the river? The math doesn't look good. It's about 25 miles to the mouth of the river, which is just about at sea level. With a glide ratio of 9.1, we can only glide about 17 miles from this altitude. Unless we can find a way to extend our glide, we won't make it. The wind is from the northwest today, as it was on that August day back in 1983 when John and Floyd found themselves gliding down this river valley. If we hug the south side of the valley, we should see some updrafts. Let's see if we can find some. That might help us extend our glide. We're well down into the canyon now. Without the engine, our normal descent rate's about 900 feet a minute. As we fly along the edges of the river canyon, you can see from the vertical speed indicator that as we fly through the updrafts, we are actually climbing. We're increasing in altitude. Floyd said in the book, when he put his wing right up against the rock cliff, he was going up 1,000 feet a minute. This is exactly how John and Floyd were able to stretch their glide, by taking advantage of the updrafts along the walls of the valley, just as we're able to do. So for much of our trip down this valley, just like a glider or a sailplane, we're able to maintain our altitude or climb in these updrafts. If we can keep this up, we should be able to reach the mouth of the river. At our best glide speed of 90 miles an hour, it'll take us about 20 minutes to glide down the length of this river. So by taking advantage of the updrafts along the canyon walls, we've made it all the way to the mouth of the river. Now we've got one chance at making a good landing. According to Lisa Bale's book, John and Floyd actually arrived at the camp landing strip up ahead at about 1,000 feet. Floyd had to make a circle to lose altitude in order to land safely. We don't have quite the excess altitude they had, but we do have some, so we'll need our flaps to increase our sink rate and get down without running off the far end of the runway. This is a really narrow runway. It was cleared from part of the logging road that came into the camp up ahead. Not a very pretty landing, but we're down and safe. We made it, just as John and Floyd did back in August of 1983. When John and Floyd landed here, they were met by caretakers of the old logging camp that was here at the time. Floyd was able to get the plane's engine repaired a few days later, and he departed. John took the opportunity to do some exploring in the area, but it wasn't until the following year, 1984, that he was finally able to explore the ice fields and mountains around the headwaters of this river. John Clarke went on to many more years of exploring the coast mountains. Thanks for joining me on this adventure today. We're off now to find some more places to explore. I hope to see you on our next adventure. Until then, fly safe.